Howdy, folks. John Adams with Seeking Light. Hope you're doing well on this day. I'm outside after a little trip to the dump with the boys. Interesting thing happened. I'm not going to talk about that right now in terms of object lesson, but we had a bird hit our car while our windows were open, and it landed behind me in the seat, quite dead, quite dead. But it provided a good object lesson, which I'm going to use in Bible study with my family in just a little bit. But now you're curious, aren't you? But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the attacks I just saw the other day on the movie The Sound of Freedom. And again, you probably are very well aware of that movie if you've paid attention to my channel. And of course, there's big name people in the news who have talked about it. But I wanted to talk about one of the logically fallacious attacks that's occurred on that particular movie. So you may have looked at Rotten Tomatoes or heard that Rotten Tomatoes score on the Sound of Freedom. I want to say The Sound of Music. It has 100% audience score, 100%, which you never see. You'll see like excellent cinematic movies like Top Gun Maverick, hit the high 90s occasionally. And I think the new Tom Cruise movie, which I'm looking forward to seeing coming up later this week, has a high 90s score too, the new Mission Impossible. But anyway, it has a 100% score, and so somebody wrote an article about that. That's not surprising that it has a 100% audience score when you consider the audience. Okay. So, immediately you look at that title and you go, okay, what are they going to say that's logically fallacious? Titles can tell you a lot about the motivation of the people writing it. Because what are they trying to do? They're trying to disparage the 100% rating. Okay, so how do they go about trying to disparage it? Well, it was pointed out that largely the audience for Sound of Freedom has been Christian. Now, so let's just break it down, the argumentation. The audience has largely been Christian, evangelical, church-going, conservative, Bible-believing people. So, first of all, there's no hard data in the article to indicate that that's the case. No polling data, nothing like that. Maybe there will be at some point, and it'll prove the point. I do see it largely promoted amongst Christians, but that doesn't necessarily mean, it does not by necessity mean that only Christians have gone to see it. In fact, I would argue that true believers in Jesus Christ, probably the majority of people who have seen it are not truly believing in Jesus. They may have a form of religion, some of them, and they may be moved by a legalistic sense. They may be also moved by just a general human compassion. They may be moved by a totally secular viewpoint with interest in this topic. So we don't know. So that's a hard data point that this article claims to have with no data to back it up. So the other thing that this article is fallaciously stating is that, we're willing to go into this movie with high expectations and set aside any critical reasoning skills to assess whether it's a good movie or not. Now, there is some validity to that. We tend to, for example, I look at Donald Trump through the eyes of, and I believe I have a fairly balanced look at him, but I do look at some of the policies he put in place, the justices that he made sure got to the Supreme Court, the fact that he kept us out of wars, as all positives that help outweigh the fact that he was a serial adulterer on his third wife and has said some pretty nasty things and negative things to people. So it does kind of color my perception of, coming into the next election cycle, would I want him again as president compared to Biden? And the answer is clearly yes. But I also look at Biden and I see all the nasty things he's done, which I'm not going into for this. So logically fallacious argument number 2 is that because somebody may go in with a positive perception of people like Jim Caviezel or I'm blanking on the guy's name who the movie's based upon, and the movie production company that wrestled the rights from Disney to produce this movie. And because I feel very passionately about a subject matter like child sex trafficking, that I will go into that movie ready to give it a 100% rating. Well, and what that indicates is that I've checked my brain at the door, and what this person is arguing, who wrote this article, that all Christians will check their brain at the door and just automatically, like sheep, give it 100%. Now, there may be some amongst the group that will do that, but that's not the case for all, and it's a gross generalization, and it's another form of ad hominem attack against the person, rather than assessing whether we can capably go into a movie and judge it by things like the acting skills, the storyline, the character development, the cinematography, the musical score. And when I see movies, I do tend to do that. I tend to look at all those elements and say, okay, this is a really nicely done artistic piece, and it does tell a really nice story, and it has nice character development. So I do look for these things too when I rate a movie. And frankly, probably the majority of people keep those things in mind. They don't just blanketly say 100%, 100%. So there's no empirical data to support this writer of this article's supposition that Christians are just going to give 100% because we're pro the message of the movie or pro the studio. And so anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I was just, looking at again, encouraging you as somebody that's going to watch this video to look at any movie review, any book review, any review of a person critically and say, is this argument really valid that this person's making? And also, and again, going to that title, what does the title tell you about the person's final conclusion, and how are they going to back that up? And chances are, if you see one worded like that I just mentioned, probably they don't have the ability to back up their statement, or they haven't done a good job. And they've probably committed a lot of logical fallacies along the way. Gross generalization. Did I say that one already? I think I did. Anyway, hope you're doing well. Take care. God bless.